Thank you all so much for having me. Really excited to be here. Great talks. As Torben mentioned, our mission is to bring Latin American populations to the forefront of precision medicine and life science R&D. And I'd like to start today's talk with this photo that I took yesterday, a few blocks away, of this coffee shop where you could find all these amazing beans from all over the world. Among them, a Mexican community up in the cloud forest in Veracruz, a single origin from Guatemala, among Ethiopia, Peru, and this amazing genetic diversity, which is great for us coffee drinkers, but it begs the question, if a coffee shop can achieve this level of diversity, why can't we do the same with our biomedical data sets? Tabitha did a great job at explaining this. Today, Hispanic Latinos account for less than 1% of all genome-wide association studies. People peg this closer to 0.25%, which is concerning for many reasons. Apologies for the glitches. Concerning for many reasons, but it makes perfect sense when you start to look at the funding and infrastructure challenges that we face in the region. So, for instance, IMEGEN, which is Mexico's national genomics institute, has a yearly budget of $12 million. That is compared to the US counterpart, which has nearly $700 to $800 million in budget. The region has less than 30% of EHR use, which means that most hospitals still run on pen and paper, which makes any form of data harmonization and research and all these beautiful things practically impossible. And this obviously leads to two main consequences, one of them being tremendous health disparities. If you take a look at this graph of mortality rate versus health expenditure per capita, you see that both Mexico and the United States are outliers for all the wrong reasons. Mexico spends less than a quarter of what the UK spends on healthcare, less than an eighth of what Switzerland spends. And obviously, everybody wants to spend less on healthcare, but the consequences are grave. And the second major consequence is missed scientific opportunities, where not only are we hurting patients by not being able to deliver the right treatment to the right patient at the right time, but we're missing out on the vast amount of biomedical insights that exist within these populations. This graph is a representation of the percent of European admixture throughout the region. Red means more European admixture, deep blue means less. So as you can see, everywhere from southern Mexico down to the western part of South America, you have an enormous prevalence of populations that are unbeknownst to the genomics community and could be the source of drug targets, biomarkers that could also be found more efficiently once you consider that a lot of these regions are actually bottleneck and founder populations due to geographical barriers, language barriers, faith barriers that have existed for many, many centuries. And so the question that keeps me up at night is, how do we move Mexico down along this axis without necessarily overburdening the health system with additional expenditures? And yes, precision medicine is an option, and of course it's the vision that we want to aspire to, but the idea of importing precision medicine algorithms or treatments or approaches is not necessarily actionable because, garbage in, garbage out. There's certain things that will simply not be applicable or effective in our populations. So our approach is basically a big alignment of incentives, which is we offer digital tools and digitization to local health systems in exchange for data access, which we can then use to partner with global life science organizations that can make use of this data and further the precision medicine field for all. The first component of our technology is a free electronic health record. We found this to be sort of the basis for everything that we want to do, and it gives us an opportunity to build this ecosystem from scratch. So while the NHS and the US have upwards of 90% of EHR usage, it's clear that it's also a hassle to now work with an existing entrenched technology that you have to modernize. Latin America has the benefit that we're essentially starting from scratch, so we can start to build with this forward-looking mentality. Our EHR, for instance, includes automated and AI workflows, which reduce physician burnout, because why would we design an EHR that everybody hates? It's friendly, it's lightweight, it doesn't require a lot of infrastructure, which is key for our health systems, many of which lack an internet connection. So there's times where we've had to work with mobile devices and purchase SIM cards for the local physicians, which is appalling to people around the world, but it's a reality that we face every single day. And then the second component of our technology is what we call our digital biobank, which involves everything from cold storage for biosamples up to high throughput pathology slide screening and a lot of paper extraction. So we actually work with a lot of stacks and stacks of paper, which we believe are treasure troves of data that would otherwise be lost to the scientific community. And how do we pay for all this? The short answer is through partnerships with international players who can make use of all this information. And that includes unique data sets from EHR data, pathology data. We have close to 2 million pathology slides that we're digitizing as we speak, a couple of hundreds of EHR records, and our aspiration is to build a genomic data set. However, genomics is terribly inaccessible in our region, so these would have to be approached through prospective cohorts that we're achieving through Lifebit's help. So I appreciate it. It means a lot. And finally, the patient portal, which keeps coming up. Another component that we try to include is how do we build this ecosystem with the patient front and center, in a sense that Latin America in particular has a long history of parachute science, where scientists can come in, extract data, leave, and monetize or make use of that information, often leaving those participants out in the cold. Something that we find is very conducive is using these new technologies like blockchain and the like, which allow patients to tokenize their consent, oftentimes in a dynamic way. So if scientists need to reconsent the patient or oftentimes recontact the patient, that is done through a very simple mobile app, which is accessible to most people in the region. And components of fair and equitable benefit sharing, which are not common in human genomics, surprisingly, but are very common in the coffee space, for instance. And our goal for this next year is to build the first harmonized oncology network. We're currently working with the top oncology centers in Mexico, and our goal is to continue expanding this platform to other oncology centers throughout South America. Everybody speaking the same language, in interoperable medical records, using the same ontologies, shared SOPs if they're going to biobank and collect samples, and obviously these global IRB-approved consent agreements that allow for this dynamic consenting. Thank you all for being here and listening to the talk. We can't do this alone, obviously, so if any of you are interested in data, patients, cohorts, collaborations of any sort, it would be incredibly, incredibly valuable for us. So thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much, Victor. And I'm gonna check my phone. Lovely, we have some time for questions and some questions from the online audience. And this seems to be quite in the theme around trust. So from your perspective, what is the most critical aspect of building trust with health providers and patients to participate in your project?
I think transparency is key. I think the agreement that we have with health systems where we exchange infrastructure in exchange for data makes sense in a quid pro quo kind of way. But the fact that we can offer them transparency of how their data is going to be used, where it's going to be used, And this notion of the dynamic consent with data provenance and data traceability makes a huge difference.
Perfect. And looking in the audience, I see a question from Maxine over there.
Hi, many thanks for your presentation. So in exchanging infrastructure for data, that makes a lot of sense in the immediate term, but in doing so, you then lock in value indefinitely whilst the infrastructure is still being used. So how are you looking at evolving the benefit and value exchange thereafter once they're within your ecosystem?
The value for us or the value for?
Both actually, yeah.
Well, I think the basis of our platform is building this data repository upon which you can develop a series of value-added products and services, which we see as the second, sort of like the second act once you have this foundational platform. So the next step would be algorithms or co-development with international partners that we can then deploy within the region. Yeah.
I saw a question over here.
Hi, thank you so much for a great talk. You mentioned before using AI to support EHR and minimize clinician burnout. What are some ways in which that support is administered? And also, if possible, can you touch on how you've gone about benchmarking those methods as you've introduced them?
Yes, so a clarification is the AI that we use in the EHR is for non-clinical purposes.
Got you.
So it's more of productivity tools and automated workflows because we noticed that a lot of physicians, the burden of change from paper to EHR was significant enough where they do see a benefit in the digital tool, but they do not want to be attached to a computer. They, especially culturally, they want to be engaged with their patient. So things like voice scribes were very, very helpful, allowing them to create clinical notes in certain formats without having to spend too much time. We saw that really helped our adoption rate.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I think there is one more question that we have online, and it is really lovely to see that engagement there. And do continue. You play an important part. And Victor, this is a question around kind of like an extra consent. So do you have a problem with sequencing native populations? So in the US, an individual may not have their genome sequenced without permission from the tribe, as given as an example. Do you have?
Yeah, same in Mexico. So in most of Latin America, and Tabitha can speak to that, it's very, very sensitive to, and there's been projects that have abused the openness of our regulatory bodies. So we try to be very careful when approaching what are considered vulnerable groups. And yes, you need to have buy-in from, I guess, the elders of many of these peoples, and it's just incredibly sensitive. Yeah.
Checking in the room if there are any questions here from any of you. Oh, Maria, one question.
So this is a quick question. Maybe just discussing a little bit further, especially on the EHR matter, right? Like, and maybe giving us a better view around why it is so difficult to go with more established solutions like Epic, for example, which are traditionally more archaic, more difficult to, or not difficult, but like more time-consuming to put potentially notes and administer, right? Like, why such solutions cannot scale beyond, let's say, this part of the world?
In short, because nobody will pay for them. Nobody would pay what Epic is priced at. There's other SaaS EHR solutions, but we've seen that they have a lot of churn. So clinicians actually stop using them because they're painful to use and they're costing them, time and money, and they simply don't see the value of switching. So our hope is that by providing a user-friendly, free EHR, that they can then actually use the data or facilitate some form of collaboration with international parties, that this would become a much more attractive option for health systems.
And one more question, which is kind of around costs, I suppose. This is, what kind of incentives are you offering participants?
Participants?
Yes. Do they have any incentivization?
Yeah, so participants are able to obviously get access to all of their data. EHR portability or health record portability we saw was a big I would say selling point. We're not selling them anything, but the fact that they can take their clinical information from one doctor to another was a big incentive for them. And that's the incentive that we offer for now.
Perfect. And I think this was a lovely close to our morning sessions. Again, Victor, thank you so much for traveling here, and a warm welcome to London.